The sun was setting over the sprawling waters of the Indus River, painting the sky in shades of crimson and amber. The small town of Kot Mithan seemed calm from a distance, but beneath the surface, the air carried a tension that only the locals could feel. That day, news had spread like wildfire. An enormous river steamer, the Indus Queen, was scheduled to dock at Kot Mithan, carrying hundreds of passengers from Karachi to Sukkur. Its grandeur was unmatched, gleaming brass railings, polished wooden decks, and a promise of luxury in a land where river travel was usually humble and rustic. I, Alina, had recently returned to my ancestral home near the riverbank. My father often told stories of the Indus and its hidden dangers, stories my city-bred friends dismissed as folklore. But that evening, as I walked along the misty banks of the river, I felt something more than excitement. A strange chill wrapped around my spine, though the air was warm. The locals whispered warnings about the Indus Queen, how it was cursed, how travelers often disappeared, and how the river itself seemed alive, watching and waiting. Despite the warnings, curiosity, and perhaps a subconscious desire to witness history pulled me toward the dock. From a distance, I saw the ship glimmering under the dying sun. Its size was staggering, dwarfing the modest river vessels lined along the shore. Lanterns flickered along the decks, their reflection dancing eerily on the river's surface. I noticed shadows moving, not just from the crew, but from something unnatural. The boarding began in chaos. Families, merchants, and officials climbed aboard, all buzzing with excitement. But I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was off. A servant girl, barely 16, approached me with pale eyes and trembling hands. "Miss, don't go on the ship. It takes more than lives. It takes souls." I laughed nervously, brushing her off. Superstition, I thought. Yet as I boarded, the wooden gangplank seemed to groan under my weight, and the sound echoed as if the ship itself resented my presence. The Indus Queen welcomed me with open decks, elegant lounges, and the soft hum of a river engine. Passengers mingled, unaware or perhaps willfully ignorant of the dark whispers floating along the water. The first night aboard the ship was strange. A thick fog rolled over the river, swallowing the moon and stars. The lanterns seemed dimmer than they had been during boarding, and the chatter of passengers became muffled, as if sound itself feared to travel on these waters. I tried to sleep in my cabin, but sleep would not come. From somewhere below, I heard a rhythmic thumping, like the heartbeat of the ship, but slower, heavier, and wrong. Curiosity overpowered fear, and I tiptoed toward the lower deck. The corridor was narrow, the wooden floors creaking under each step. I passed cabins where the doors were slightly ajar, revealing rooms that looked normal, yet felt wrong. On one wall, a painting hung crookedly. The eyes of the people in the painting seemed to shift when I looked away. I rubbed my eyes, thinking exhaustion had made me hallucinate. Then I heard it, a low, guttural whisper, almost imperceptible, repeating my name. "Alina, Alina." My breath caught, the air grew colder, and a shadow detached itself from the corner of the corridor. It moved against the flow of the ship, gliding across the floor with no legs, no form, just darkness. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The whispers intensified, overlapping in voices that were not human. Cries of anger, despair, and sorrow, all trapped in the river's cold embrace. I ran to the upper deck, desperate for fresh air, but the fog had thickened and the river beyond was invisible. It was then I realized I was not alone. Figures emerged from the mist, passengers I had seen boarding, but now their faces were twisted, gaunt, eyes hollowed out, staring silently. Panic surged through me, but instinct held me back. I needed to understand. I had to know what was happening. I descended again, cautiously, into the heart of the ship,
the engine room. There the crew huddled, whispering feverishly. One old engineer looked at me and muttered, "It's begun. The river never forgets, and neither do the souls it claims." I pressed him for answers, but he only shook his head. The Indus Queen is cursed. It carries those it pleases, not just on its decks, but into the river itself. Once the fog comes, there is no escape. The river takes, and the ship becomes its vessel. Tonight, it will choose. As I left the engine room, the whispers rose into a wailing crescendo. The shadows stretched across the walls, consuming the light. I realized then that the river was alive and the ship was its coffin. Every passenger was a potential sacrifice. The Indus Queen, the pride of Indus Pakistan's riverways, was a vessel of horror. I ran to the deck, but the fog parted just enough to reveal a horrifying sight, a massive shape beneath the water, a shadow larger than any river vessel I had ever seen, moving in rhythm with the ship. Its eyes glowed faintly, burning with malevolent intelligence. It was as if the river itself had taken form, watching, waiting, hungry. The crew shouted warnings, but their voices sounded distant, as if swallowed by the fog. The passengers screamed, many too late to realize the danger. And then, the first of them vanished. Screams cut abruptly, bodies disappearing into the misty waters. I barely clung to the railing, my hands slick with fear. The ship groaned, and the lights flickered. Something whispered directly in my ear. The night has begun, and the river chooses its queen. And in that moment, I understood. This journey was no ordinary voyage. The Indus Queen had awakened its curse at Kot Mithan, and those who boarded were trapped between the living and the dead. The night stretched on, and I felt eyes all around me, watching, waiting. Somewhere deep in the ship, the shadows pulsed, alive, as the whispers promised more horrors to come. The river had claimed its first souls, but I knew it would not stop with them. I realized with a sickening clarity that I had two choices: succumb to the terror or fight for survival. But survival on the Indus Queen meant confronting something that defied explanation, something ancient, evil, and unstoppable. And so, my nightmare had truly begun.